In just 47 seconds, one of Hollywood's most respected actors would deliver a verbal takedown so brutal that it left Joy Behar visibly shaken and the entire studio audience in stunned silence. What started as Tom Hardy promoting his latest film quickly devolved into a fiery confrontation that would end with the British actor storming off the View set, leaving behind a trail of destruction and one of the most explosive moments in daytime television history. The tension was palpable from the moment Hardy walked onto the set. Fresh off his critically acclaimed performance in his latest psychological thriller, the Venom star appeared relaxed in his signature leather jacket. But seasoned viewers of The View could sense something brewing beneath the surface. Joy Behar, known for her sharp tongue and confrontational style, had clearly done her homework. And not in a good way. "Tom, welcome to The View." Behar began with that trademark smile that never quite reaches her eyes. "I have to say, I've been reading some interesting things about you lately. Your comments about method acting and how you prepare for roles. Some people are calling it extreme, even dangerous." Hardy's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'm not sure what you're referring to, Joy. I take my craft seriously, but I wouldn't describe my process as dangerous." "Oh, really?" Behar leaned forward, clearly relishing the opportunity to corner her guest. "Because I have it right here that you've admitted to doing some pretty questionable things to get into character. Staying in character between takes, refusing to break, making your co-stars uncomfortable. Some might call that unprofessional." The other hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and the rest, exchanged uncomfortable glances. This wasn't the typical celebrity puff-piece interview they'd expected. Hardy's publicist, sitting in the wings, looked increasingly concerned as Behar continued her assault. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Hardy replied, his British accent becoming more pronounced as his irritation grew. "Method acting is a legitimate technique that's been used by actors for decades. Marlon Brando, Daniel Day-Lewis, Christian Bale, we all immerse ourselves in our characters because that's how we deliver authentic performances for audiences." But Behar wasn't backing down. If anything, she was doubling down. "But there's a difference between dedication and obsession, isn't there? I mean, when you were filming Bronson, you gained all that weight. You isolated yourself from your family. That doesn't sound healthy to me." "That sounds like someone who can't separate reality from fiction." The studio audience began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. Even the camera operator seemed to sense that this interview was veering into dangerous territory. Hardy's hands, which had been casually resting on the arms of his chair, were now gripping them tightly. "I'm sorry, but I think you're mischaracterizing my work ethic," Hardy said, his voice dropping to a dangerously low register. "Every actor has their process. What works for me might not work for others. But I've never harmed anyone or compromised a production because of my methods." Behar laughed, that sharp, cutting laugh that had become her trademark. "Come on, Tom. Let's be honest here. You've had incidents on set. Crew members have complained. There have been reports of you being difficult to work with, of creating hostile environments because you refuse to drop the act." "What reports?" Hardy's voice was ice cold now. "Where are you getting this information?" "Oh, I have my sources," Behar replied with obvious satisfaction. "Anonymous sources from multiple productions who've worked with you. They paint a very different picture from the one you're trying to present today." The tension in the studio was now so thick you could cut it with a knife. Whoopi Goldberg attempted to intervene, sensing that things were spiraling out of control. "Maybe we should—" "No, let her finish," Hardy interrupted, his eyes never leaving Behar's face. "I want to hear exactly what these anonymous sources have told you about me." Behar's smile widened. She thought she had him exactly where she wanted him. "Well, there are reports of you staying in character as violent criminals even when cameras weren't rolling, making jokes about violence, intimidating other actors. One source told me you once threatened to break someone's face because they interrupted you while you were in character." "That's complete bullshit," Hardy snapped, the first crack in his composure finally showing. "I've never threatened anyone on any set, ever. If you're going to make accusations like that, you better have some proof to back them up." The atmosphere in the studio had shifted completely. What had started as a celebrity interview had become something much more sinister. Behar had clearly come prepared for war, armed with what appeared to be carefully researched ammunition, designed to destroy Hardy's reputation. But she had underestimated her opponent. Hardy leaned forward in his chair, matching Behar's aggressive posture. "Let me ask you something, Joy. How long did you spend digging up dirt on me for this interview? Because it seems like you're more interested in creating controversy than actually discussing my work." "I'm just asking the questions that people want answers to," Behar replied defensively. But there was something in her voice that suggested she knew she had pushed too far. "No, you're ambushing me with unsubstantiated rumors and trying to pass them off as journalism," Hardy shot back. "This isn't an interview. It's a character assassination." The tension between them was now electric, crackling across the studio like a live wire. The other hosts sat frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let the confrontation play out. The studio audience was completely silent, sensing that they were witnessing something unprecedented. But this was only the beginning. What would happen next would make this opening exchange look like a gentle warm-up, as Joy Behar was about to discover that Tom Hardy wasn't going to be her victim. The silence in the studio stretched for what felt like an eternity before Hardy spoke again, his voice now carrying a dangerous edge that made everyone lean forward in their seats. "You know what, Joy? Since we're apparently doing investigative journalism here, let me ask you something. How's your track record when it comes to getting your facts straight?" Behar's confident smirk faltered for just a moment. "Excuse me? Well, you've built quite a reputation over the years for making bold statements that don't always hold up under scrutiny, haven't you?" Hardy's tone was deceptively calm, like a predator circling its prey. "Remember when you claimed that certain political figures were involved in scandals that turned out to be completely fabricated? Or when you accused that Broadway producer of misconduct based on anonymous sources that mysteriously disappeared when lawyers got involved?" The color began to drain from Behar's face, but she tried to maintain her aggressive stance. "That's completely different. This is about your behavior on film sets." "Is it, though?" Hardy leaned back in his chair, suddenly looking completely at ease, while Behar appeared increasingly uncomfortable. "Because it seems to me like you have a pattern of using this platform to destroy people's reputations based on gossip and hearsay. Tell me, Joy, do you even know the names of these supposed anonymous sources? Or did your producers just hand you a list of talking points designed to create drama?" The other hosts were now visibly squirming. Sarah Haynes attempted to redirect the conversation. "Maybe we should talk about Tom's new film." "No, I want to hear Joy's answer," Hardy interrupted, his piercing blue eyes never leaving Behar's increasingly flustered face. "Because if she's going to sit here and accuse me of being unprofessional and dangerous, I think she should be prepared to back up those claims with something more substantial than office gossip." Behar's mask was beginning to slip completely now. The confident interrogator was being systematically dismantled by an actor who clearly wasn't intimidated by her reputation. "Look, Tom, I don't have to reveal my sources to you or anyone else. That's basic journalism." Hardy let out a harsh laugh that echoed through the stunned studio. "Journalism? Is that what we're calling this? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks more like tabloid ambush tactics dressed up as legitimate television." "How dare you?" Behar snapped, her voice rising to a pitch that made several audience members visibly wince. "I've been doing this for decades. I don't need some actor lecturing me about journalism." "And there it is," Hardy said, his voice deadly quiet now. "Some actor. That's what this is really about, isn't it, Joy? You don't think actors deserve respect. We're just pretty faces here for your entertainment, right? Toys you can play with and break when you get bored?" The tension in the studio had reached a breaking point. The camera operators were getting shots they never expected, capturing every micro-expression as this verbal battle escalated beyond anything the view had ever seen. Hardy's publicist was frantically trying to get the attention of the show's producers, but it was clear that this train had left the station and there was no stopping it now. "That's not what I said," Behar protested, but her voice lacked its earlier conviction. "But it's what you meant," Hardy pressed on relentlessly. "You brought me here under false pretenses. You told my people this would be a standard promotional interview, but you had no intention of talking about my film or my craft. You planned an ambush from the moment I walked through those doors." Whoopi Goldberg made another attempt to regain control of the situation. "All right, let's all take a breath here." "No, Whoopi, let's not," Hardy said, his accent thickening with anger. "Because your colleague here just spent the last 10 minutes trying to destroy my reputation on national television, based on what she admits are anonymous, unverified sources. And when I call her out on it, she hides behind some twisted definition of journalism. Behar's face was now flushed red with anger and embarrassment. You can't talk to me like that. This is my show. Actually, it's all of their show. Hardy gestured to the other hosts. But you seem to think you can turn it into your personal vendetta platform whenever you feel like it. Well, congratulations, Joy. You got your drama. You got your viral moment. But you picked the wrong fucking target. The audience gasped audibly at Hardy's profanity. Several producers could be seen frantically gesturing from the wings, but the confrontation had taken on a life of its own. Hardy was no longer the composed British gentleman who had walked onto the set 20 minutes earlier. He had transformed into something harder, more dangerous, and Behar was clearly beginning to realize she had awakened something she couldn't control. I think we need to go to commercial, Goldberg announced desperately, but Hardy wasn't finished. You want to know about method acting, Joy? He continued, his voice now carrying the kind of menace that had made him famous in films like Bronson and The Revenant. Let me give you a real demonstration. Right now, I'm channeling every character I've ever played who's had to deal with bullying, manipulative people who think they can push others around just because they have a microphone and a platform. The studio had gone completely silent except for the sound of Hardy's voice, which seemed to fill every corner of the space. Even the technical crew had stopped what they were doing to watch this unprecedented meltdown unfold in real time. But the worst was yet to come, as Hardy was about to deliver a final blow that would leave Joy Behar speechless and send shockwaves through the entire daytime television industry. Hardy stood up slowly, his imposing frame casting a shadow over the entire panel. The movement was deliberate, calculated, and it sent a ripple of unease through the studio audience. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet, but carried the weight of absolute authority. You know what the real problem is here, Joy? You've gotten so comfortable in your little bubble of manufactured outrage that you've forgotten what real accountability looks like. You sit behind this desk every day, throwing stones at people's careers and reputations, but you've never had to face the consequences of your actions. Behar tried to interrupt, but Hardy held up a hand that silenced her immediately. I'm talking now, he said with such quiet intensity that even Whoopi Goldberg didn't dare intervene. For 20 minutes, you've attacked my professionalism, my character, and my integrity based on nothing but gossip. You've tried to paint me as some kind of unstable method actor who terrorizes film sets. But here's what you don't seem to understand. I've worked with some of the biggest names in this industry, and not one of them would ever say the things your anonymous sources have allegedly told you. Hardy reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. In fact, let me give you some real sources. Christopher Nolan, I have his number right here. Want me to call him and ask about my behavior on the sets of Inception, The Dark Knight Rises, and Dunkirk? How about Ridley Scott? We made The Martian together. Or maybe George Miller? We spent months working on Mad Max together. The color had completely drained from Behar's face as she realized where this was heading. Hardy continued, his voice growing stronger with each word. But you won't call them, will you? Because this was never about journalism or accountability. This was about ratings. This was about creating a viral moment at my expense. And you thought I'd just sit here and take it like some desperate celebrity who needs your platform more than you need me. The silence in the studio was deafening. Hardy looked directly into the main camera, addressing the audience at home rather than the panel. Let me tell you what real professionalism looks like, he said, his voice carrying across the studio like a thunderclap. It's showing up prepared, treating people with respect, and conducting yourself with integrity, even when others don't extend you the same courtesy. What happened here today? This ambush disguised as an interview. This is the opposite of professionalism. He turned back to Behar, who sat frozen in her chair like a deer caught in headlights. You want to talk about dangerous behavior, Joy? What's dangerous is using your platform to spread unsubstantiated rumors about people's careers. What's dangerous is thinking you can destroy someone's reputation because you're having a slow news day. What's dangerous is believing that your title gives you the right to be cruel without consequences. Hardy began walking toward the edge of the set, but he wasn't finished. He turned back one final time, and when he spoke, every person in that studio knew they were witnessing television history. You've made a career out of tearing people down, Joy. But today, You picked the wrong person to fuck with. I've played killers, soldiers, and madmen on screen, but I've never met anyone as genuinely toxic as the person sitting in that chair right now." The studio erupted in gasps and scattered applause from audience members who couldn't contain their shock and admiration. Behar's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, but no words came out. For the first time in her career, Joy Behar was completely speechless. "This interview is over," Hardy announced, pulling off his microphone and dropping it on his chair. "And Joy, next time you want to ambush someone, make sure they don't have the backbone to fight back." As Hardy strode toward the exit, the other hosts sat in stunned silence. Sarah Haynes looked mortified. Whoopi appeared to be processing what had just happened. And the guest hosts were clearly wondering how they'd ended up in the middle of a television bloodbath. "Tom, wait!" one of the producers called out. But Hardy didn't even slow down. "We're going to commercial," Whoopi finally announced weakly, but it was too late. The damage was done. As Hardy reached the studio doors, he paused for just a moment and looked back at the panel. Behar was still sitting there, shell-shocked and humiliated, surrounded by her co-hosts who were clearly struggling to process what they had just witnessed. "Oh, and Joy?" Hardy called out one final time, his voice echoing through the studio. "When this airs, remember that you brought this on yourself, every single second of it." With that, Tom Hardy walked out of the View studio, leaving behind one of the most devastating takedowns in daytime television history. The man who had entered as a guest promoting his latest film had left as a warrior who had just won a battle that no one, least of all Joy Behar, had seen coming. In the aftermath, as the studio scrambled to figure out how to salvage the remaining show, one thing was crystal clear. Joy Behar had finally met her match, and the entire world had watched her get systematically destroyed by an actor who refused to be her victim. The confrontation was over, but the shockwaves would reverberate through the television industry for years to come.